Hey everyone, yeah, welcome back. Good to see you again. You're looking well. Grab yourselves a drink and get a seat. We're going to get started. Because, yes, there is a show. It's all been happening and now you want to know. But before we can start, we must begin with hello. My name is Sean, your host and fellow. Now grab hold your beverage, your mind just as quick. We're building up for our best sip. So join me now for the greatest pleasure, where we unwind this world together. It's time now. It's time for the sip. Let's do it now. Let's do it quick. Go! Delicious. Well, a repeat offender named Gabriel Ibarra decided to hit the same Today's Vision Oak Cliff optical store, which is a high-end eyeglass store, for the third time in a month. He'd already stolen about $15,000 worth of fancy frames in a previous break-ins. This time he climbed onto the roof and squeezed through a hole only to get completely stuck inside the stall. He couldn't get out, he couldn't reach more loot, and basically trapped himself like a raccoon in the chimney. Police showed up, found him wedged in there, and arrested him on the spot. Now, where have we heard that strategy before? The store manager came out and said, "This guy won't quit our frames." Ibarra has a long rap sheet, 20 arrests since 2004, everything from DWI to family violence. Sounds like a pleasant chap. But this one takes the cake for pure stupidity. It seems you can't teach an old burglar new exits. I have to give that little quip to Grok, as he came up with that one, but I thought it was still pretty good. Meanwhile, in Iran, on Sunday, talks were still stalled and the Tusker had just been seized. Iran condemned that as piracy and vowed a response. The Tusker is not actually an oil tanker. It's a general-purpose container ship that has been linked to Iranian financial and weapons programs in the past. The ship itself may be carrying some supposed dual-use technology components, and that can be used for civilian and military applications, and apparently made several stops in Asian countries before nearly making it to Iran. So on Monday morning, Iran was still trying to prevent shipping, and there's some reports of warning shots and Iran ships having to turn back. Shipping still seems heavily disrupted at the moment, or back then. There was also conflicting signals in the mediation with Iran and Pakistan. In the afternoon, Iran rejected any further talks, citing US demands, and was presumably over the nuclear material and the blockade. Oil markets remain volatile. On Tuesday morning, preparations for talks were still ongoing, but Iran demanded the Tusker be released. There are reports of intra-regime power struggles affecting the united negotiating position. On the afternoon, Trump announced a unilateral extension to the ceasefire, citing a request from Pakistan and Iran's fractured leadership. He says that the blockade and ceasefire will continue indefinitely until Iran comes up with a plan. There are reports that of the new Ayatollah Mujtaba Khamenei has been locked away by the military and is being isolated from contact. They've erected a security perimeter around him. They've blocked essential presidential appointments and decisions, effectively isolated him from much of the rest of the regular government. His public appearances have been minimal and non-existent since the appointment, leading to speculation about his condition and influence. So these reports, while they're not big changes, do indicate to me that things have potential to improve. The Tusker could be a valuable source of information about Iran's weapons programs. And the reports of fragmentation on Iran's leadership is actually a good thing at the moment. That indicates to me that there are some hardliners and they're trying to stick to their current plan, but there are enough voices on the other side that are high up enough that can disagree with them now. And this also links to the reports of the Ayatollah being held in a very secure location with no access to the public. Almost certainly the military in Iran is trying to control the information he receives and is limiting his public access, so you can't make any crazy calls for violence. That would destabilize the peace too much and may lead to the death of those military leaders. So military is almost certainly making sure he doesn't give them a new headache. Scott Adams first mentioned this in his previous in the previous one-day Iran war, when the previous Ayatollah was isolated and held in a similar position. So I expect there's quite a few leaders in Iran that would be happy to agree to the existing deal. In fact, I wouldn't like to be one of the hardliners at the moment, because once the two factions become clear, two factions may become one, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think Trump would much rather make a deal with a group of people that are more reasonable and willing to deliver. So even though there are some reports of sporadic attacks on vessels and that have tried to pass, there's not really been any real major incidents yet. There's also hasn't been any missile or drone attacks in the last week, which is really helping things, I think. It's not clear how many missiles or drones Iran still has, though. No doubt the Tusker was there to try and help with the resupply. And this ceasefire will be allowing the IRGC to regroup and reload a little, but it would seem pointless to actually start any more attacks. It would be like the Flintstones versus the future armor at the moment. So ultimately, if this sticks and it does work out, then Trump may have actually pulled off a Kobayashi Maru. That is a Star Trek reference, essentially talking about a training mission where there's multiple no-win outcomes. Iran seems likely positioned that they're able to go the distance, and they had somewhat of a large and somewhat modern military, and they seem to be ready to dig their heels in at this point. So President Trump initiating a kinetic conflict looked like it was going to end in disaster. And certainly the initial response from Iran had everyone holding their breath. They attacked Israel and then some of the other Arab nations, trying to draw them into the conflict. But even though there was some loss of life and some damage to the infrastructure, everyone seems to be holding the line. Iran was decapitated and then again. So, yeah, because nothing's happened since then, nothing major, I should say. It looks like the strong play may have actually helped bring this sort of outcome at the moment. When Captain Kirk did that mission, he ignored all the known outcomes and framed his own course that ultimately threaded everything so perfectly. The mission was ultimately a success. With Iran, the chance of failure was incredibly high, and the potential for regional instability would have been absolutely massive, and that would have affected the whole globe, not just the region. So much oil, so much necessary produce comes through that strait. It would have meant a really bad day for a lot of people. And there's just so many players in this field. You couldn't have possibly hoped for an outcome that would have been as calm as this. But we'll see. It's not over yet. It's not over yet by any means. But if it does hold, it looks like things are holding at the moment, and that could be peace for the region, which would be a good thing. And it would be quite impressive if that actually happens. Scott Adams actually called that the Kobayashi Maru. He referred to that in the first Iran war, because that seemed like an impossible situation, but one day later it was kind of all done, and then people quickly forgot about it. So yeah, there's hope, but we're not there yet. And that kind of brings me to the end of my notes. So I'm still in the throes of things at the moment, but I will leave you with a new thought, and that is to try something new. Routines are almost essential to our days, and we can get stuck into those routines too much at times, though, and then all we start to see is the little things in those routines. They become the big things, and it starts to add in all these unnecessary mental blockers. So take the time to push your little bubble. It is flexible and it's something that you can massage and grow, and that will give you more space to think and take on more important things. And with that, I will say thank you very much and see you later. Cheers.